What's up, guys, and welcome to A Gentle Reminder. My name is Ashley Escobar, and I will be your host of this new podcast. For those of you that know me, I did have a podcast. It was called Pieces of the Puzzle. I released it about exactly a year ago, June 1st or 2nd, I want to say. And we had a great run, but I just wasn't passionate about it. I knew that there was more that I could be doing for the podcast. I knew that there was something deeper that I wanted to get into, and I just felt like the layout, the organization, and even like the name of my old podcast just wasn't fitting with what I had envisioned this podcast to be. So I took some time off. I was going through some stuff. I decided to really dig into that time of my life to explore, what is the next step? What do I want to do? Where do I see this podcast going? What can I do to get this where I want it to be? So I decided we were going to do a podcast launch. And here we are. A few months later, I have decided to release and give this podcast thing another go. I am very excited to announce that A Gentle Reminder will be going in full blown. I'm very excited to see where this journey takes me, and I'm also very excited and grateful for those who have supported me along the way. I've had numerous people throughout the months where I was just kind of not posting, not really, producing any content on my old podcast, wondering like what had happened. Like, I loved your podcast. Where are you? Are you okay? So I can firmly say that I'm going into this next phase in my life, going into this next journey of this podcast, feeling the support, feeling the excitement, and I'm just ready to see it take off. So here we are, and I hope you guys enjoy it. So for this first episode, I want to go in and do a bit of an introduction about who I am, my background, and why I wanted to start this podcast. So again, if you didn't hear it in the beginning, my name is Ashley Escobar. I am now a senior at the University of Connecticut. I am studying allied health sciences, and I'm on a pre-PA track. I'm actually in the middle of applying for PA schools right now, which has been very, very stressful. But if you have any tips and tricks about the application process and CASPA and all that, please hit me up because it would be greatly appreciated. Aside from school, I work at my local hospital. I work as a nurse's aide there. I'm currently in the process of working towards my EMT certification. So that is pretty cool because I think that'll be a nice change for me. And then aside from work, I love to play volleyball. I love to hang out with my friends and family and just chill. I really enjoy reading, so that will definitely be a topic on a few podcasts, talking about books that I've read and books that I recommend for you guys. Colleen Hoover has been my biggest go-to since I started on this reading journey. My goal for the new year is to read 50 books. I am not even halfway there, but I am at 15 books, so I would like to say that that's pretty good. But I've been really enjoying reading. It's been very relaxing for me, and I love it. Aside from that, I love going to the gym. I love just being outside. I'm so happy that it's finally summertime to be able to go out on the lake. I just had a beach day yesterday with some of my closest friends, and it was just amazing. So overall, life has been very great. I'm very grateful for all these moments that I've had with the people that I love and all the support that I've received over the last few months. A little background on why I wanted to start this podcast. So a year ago, I had started talking about wanting to start a podcast, but I was very scared. I had no idea where to start. I was very confused. I felt like there was this idea of what needed to be a perfect podcast in order for it to succeed, and I found myself going down the rabbit hole of thoughts of like, I'm never going to be like these top content producers. Like, I'm never going to amount to what I really want this podcast to be. And there was just a lot of fear and anxiety that came behind wanting to start this podcast originally a year ago. But then I decided, you know what, YOLO, you only live once, and I don't want to live with any regrets, so I decided we're just going to launch it. So I had an old podcast, and it was called Pieces of the Puzzle. It was my little baby, it was my little experiment now that I've moved on and decided to kind of revamp the podcast that I had. But like I said in the beginning of this, I just didn't really feel as passionate about my old podcast as I do now going into this new relaunch of my podcast with A Gentle Reminder. I just felt like Pieces of the Puzzle didn't really align with what I had envisioned my podcast being, and it was kind of just unorganized and it was very sporadic, and I wish I had taken the time to just kind of plan out and really put in the work and the steps to get to where I wanted the podcast to be. So then fast forward to now, I had been going through a breakup. I've been back in school, I was taking a lot of credits, working a lot, dealing with heartbreak, that I just forgot about the podcast essentially. It just became something that I didn't really care about anymore, and it made me really sad because I like to this day, like I still remember the excitement that I had to start my podcast originally, and I knew that I still had that excitement within me and that passion within me. So I decided, you know what, I'm going through a lot right now, but I could use this time for the better. So I decided that during this dark phase of my life where I was just really going through it in a heavy depression, I wasn't myself, I found a lot of comfort in, deciding the next steps of my life. And this podcast happened to be one of those things where I really wanted to try again. And here I am, a couple months later, and I'm really excited to see where it goes. Aside from all that, I really feel that it is important to use your platforms for the better. I do see this podcast being something where I could share a lot of information, share experiences, bring people onto the podcast and have some really nice talks and conversations about important topics. Some topics that I hold very near and dear to my heart are mental health. I am not ashamed to admit that I have been a long time struggler of my mental health. Since high school up until now, I have always dealt with depression, I've always dealt with anxiety, and it's something that I'm not ashamed of to admit. It's something that I think many people our age struggle with, and I'm just glad to have been given the resources to know how to deal and cope with it when it gets really bad, and even how to continuously work on the progress when I'm in these good phases of my life. So mental health is something that I find very important, and I definitely will be talking a lot about on this podcast. Aside from that, like I mentioned, I love being active, so I love the gym. I have been working out for consistently for about 2 to 3 years. I do want to start taking it a lot more seriously, just because I have been slacking. I think we all go through phases where we just hit the gym super hard and then we just kind of forget about it for a bit. But I go every week, just not as frequently as I usually do, so I'm trying to get back into that flow of it, with me being on summer vacation and navigating not having coursework anymore, but still having to work. So having to work and rearrange my schedule now so that it can be something that is both flexible but also is realistic and will work with everything else that I got going on in my life right now. Aside from that, I just really hope to have a lot of interaction with my listeners and get some input on where they see this podcast going, on topics that they're interested, on things that they want to see, and really just flourishing this podcast into being something that really embellishes and symbolizes who I am as a person and what I want to see, and all the changes that I think can be made within our society and even our world. So I definitely am going into this next season of my life, this next season of this podcast, feeling super optimistic, feeling super grateful to be here again, to have the resources, to have all the materials that I need to really do this podcast right this time. aside from that, I hope you guys will come along with me on this journey, and I'm very, very, very excited to be releasing A Gentle Reminder by Ashley Escobar. Before I end this quick little intro episode, I do want to thank everybody that helped me along the way. My closest friends know that for months I have been going back and forth brainstorming different names. Like in the middle of class I'd be like, hey, how does this sound? And we would just be brainstorming different names, multiple conversations, putting up stuff on Canva to see like how the layout of potential names would look and everything. So I'm really, really grateful for my friends like AJ, Shahir, Olivia. Olivia's my best friend. I'll probably talk about her a lot here. Just all the lovely people in my life that continuously show up for me and continuously support me in all my decisions.